Hello, lovely friends. So, Christmas is swiftly approaching. We are coming towards the end of November, and each year, if I can, I like to do something for Advent in terms of journaling, buy a little devotional book and try and do something, maybe not every day, but to take a little bit of time out most days in December to try and refocus on what Christmas is really about, which is, of course, Jesus coming to earth as a human, which still never fails to completely blow my mind. So to do that, last year I did this little journal here, and I worked in this, and I used prompts online, and I think you can see I did a flip through of this, which I will link to in the description below. But basically what I'm saying is I made a journal especially for my Advent journaling and musings, and this little journal is made out of scraps, rubbish basically, although this lovely cover here is a piece of artwork by my daughter, which of course is in no way rubbish. A little picture of me and her on the front, which is just too cute. So yes, the cover is made out of my daughter's artwork, and then the pages inside are made out of all kinds of things, bits of old book pages, vintage music paper, lots of vintage old papers. That's some old sermon notes I found at a vintage market, or book pages, eco-dyed pages. That was turmeric dyed, I think. So really you could call it a junk journal, except that if you Google junk journal, it's come to mean something quite different and very highly crafted and beautiful in many cases. What I'm talking about is actually making a journal out of junk. So here's another example here. This has got a rust dyed fabric cover, few little fabric scraps on the front. But inside, basically the same idea. There's some old music paper, eco-dyed paper, some handmade papers, just roughly torn, as you can see, and cobbled together. And yeah, I love actually working in these tiny journals. I call them scrappy journals. And I think the reason I love them is because it doesn't take much to create a page on here. You know, you've already got some colour, some texture going on that is interesting and exciting, and it feels like you only need a little bit of collage and maybe a word or two, and you've done a page, which is what we need when we're trying to journal every day for a project or a season. It's really helpful if some of the work is done for you and you can just get straight stuck in. So I thought we would make one of these today together. So you can make a journal and be all ready for whatever kind of Advent journaling you want to do. If you've already decided on a particular devotional or program that you're going to be following during Advent, I'd love to hear about it. Please let me know in the comments below, and do, while you're at it, make sure you hit that subscribe button for me. That really helps me keep my channel going. So let's get started. Okay, so the first thing you are going to need is some papers, and a really good place to start is your recycling. This is my paper recycling. I have not vetted what is in here in any way, shape or form, but I'm just going to have a little look and see what I can find. I mean, my goodness, look at this. This is the first thing I found. I don't know how this made it into the recycling. This is obviously some sort of packaging with a wonderful pattern on it. I'll just move these out of the way for now. So that is definitely something we can use. An envelope. Envelopes can be really useful. Some marketing materials. There might be something in here that I might want to use. I think I might prefer that one with the stars on, actually. Because I'm going to make quite a tiny journal, just about A6 size for this. Hoping for some brown craft type paper as well. Here we go. Great, this is just what I'm looking for. That's good too. So we really are using any old junk here. Let's just tear these down a bit in size. You can use scissors to cut them if you like straight edges. Aim for slightly bigger than we might want, because you can always trim it down some more. Okay, great. So you can definitely make something like this entirely from recycling. But you might want to add some other types of paper in. You can add in just plain paper, plain copy paper. This is some graph paper. This is some of that, is that called isometric drawing paper? Oh, and it's double-sided as well. Look at that, that's amazing. So that's quite fun. Any types of paper that you've got lying around your house. And then you've got all your usual kind of collage papers. So things that you've used for experiments in mark making. This is like a printout of a dictionary page. You can use scrapbooking papers if you want. Go for paper rather than card though for this kind of thing. I love eco-dyeing, so I've got things like this lying around. It's particularly good for those experiments that didn't quite work as well as you wanted. So the kind of not that interesting, but still got something going on the page. Same with jelly prints. If you do jelly printing, this is this is music paper, which has then been dyed with possibly red wine, I'm thinking, from that. What else have I got here? I've got old books. This is an engineering drawing book with these kind of fab diagrams in. I can just tear some of that out. Look at that. It's just fascinating. I have got an old map here. That's the kind of thing I love as well. You don't have to have or go out and buy any of these things. Just have a look what you have already. Don't know what that is, part of a book cover. I love that kind of greeny neutral colour. And what else have I got? Oh, here we go, like this kind of thing. I printed something out, it was scrap paper, and then I used it for blotting some work that I'd done with ink that needed to remove some of the ink, and you end up with this interesting pattern. That's pretty cool, isn't it? 15. Okay, I think that is probably more than enough. I've got 15 pieces there. And we're going to make this into 2 signatures. And I'm looking for about 25 spreads. because of the 25 days of Advent. So this will easily give me that. So now we can make up our signatures. So I'm going to fiddle with these a bit more to tear them down to size and arrange them into two little books folded in half like this. And the two little books are called signatures, and they will go inside the same journal. You'll see what I mean shortly. So I'm going to fast forward while I sit down and enjoy doing that. So I just wanted to mention, if you have a sheet that is too big, so this is slightly wider than what I'm going for, you can cut it off or tear it off, but you can also fold it in, and that is going to make a little pocket, if you can see that. That you can then slip things in, like a mixed media tag or something like that. So I wouldn't do that on every page unless you're completely mad for that idea, but it's nice to have 1 or 2 pages in the mix that have a bit of a bit of variety. And then the same with this envelope. I'm going to keep that whole as an envelope. I'm going to chop it down. And again, that's going to be a little pocket that you can see through and put something in. So that's quite exciting too. And then I'm not sure about this side. Maybe we could cut that down a bit and fold that over, because these security envelopes have these lovely patterns inside. Like that, and then that's a little pocket as well. Okay, so once you have your 2 little signatures, what I did was I made sure I've got the same number of papers in each. So I've actually got 7 papers in each signature. And I also went through each sheet and with the back of my scissors made sure that these folds were really nice and crisp, and that's really going to help you later when we come to binding it. You can also give the whole lot a good old squish. And the other thing you want to ideally have is both the first sheet and the centerfold, the middle sheet, ideally needs to be something quite flat and sturdy. So this matte paper is ideal, but something like this packaging paper would not be good as the first sheet or the middle sheet. So keep the front and the back quite nice and flat, and that will just help you again when we come to bind it. So you can also put your little signatures together, because this is going to be how your book's going to be, and you can have a little flick through and just make sure that you like the way things are. It might matter to you whether they are the right way up. This writing is upside down. I actually personally quite like things to be upside down, so that doesn't bother me at all. But if there's a particular, for example, these pockets, we probably do want the opening to be at the top. So there may well be a top and a bottom to your signature. So just have a flick through. Look at all these interesting papers, isn't it fun. And you should have about 25 spreads. There we go. So I'm happy with those. I think the next thing is to think about our cover. So we are going to use fabric to make into a cover for our book. You can use card or stiff paper, but then you've got to think about some sort of spine in the middle. So for our purposes, just to keep it super simple, I am going to use some fabric. It's best to go for something fairly heavyweight for a fabric. This is like a Hessian, this is a bag some rice came in by the looks of it. So like a Hessian, that would be really good. This is part of an old linen tablecloth, and that's quite nice and stiff as well. So something fairly heavy is good, just so it's not so floppy. I mean, you could use, let's have a look. This is, don't know what this is, can't remember what it's called, that sort of satiny cotton fabric. I mean, you could use something like that. That would be totally fine too. It's just a bit floppier. So I think I'm gonna go for this, which I got for free. They were chucking it out at my local vintage market. I thought I'll have a bit of that. Now, what is usually quite nice to do, let me find my journal here, is to have I normally like to have this overlap flap, which just provides a bit of protection for the edges of the papers there. But I don't think I'm going to have quite enough fabric to do that on this occasion, because I've already been cutting out some of these flowers. So I think I'm just going to have to cut it off at this point. Now, because this is a scrappy journal, I am not in any way worried about hems and fraying and things like that. Now, if that does bother you, then of course you can cut out a piece that is slightly bigger and take it to your sewing machine and hem it all nicely. I am actually deliberately wanting this to fray and look a bit messy. I might even attack it with some pliers later, because I really like the idea of all these little threads and it looking worn and well loved and vintage, because that's the kind of vibe that I really like. This is also a bit tall. Now, yeah, I think I could lose a bit off the top. I'm not measuring anything. I'm not, you know me, I am not perfectionist or detailed orientated in any way. I just like to enjoy myself, and measuring things and being precise is not something that I personally find enjoyable. So I just like to eyeball it and go with the flow. But you do you. Again, this is lovely because I've already got this embroidery going on here. If your fabric is very plain and you would like to add some embellishment in the form of sewing before we make it into a book, then, you know, go for it. You know, if you're a little cross stitch expert, then you do your own little design on here. Probably need to do that now at this stage before we make it into a book, but you can add some bits and pieces later as well. Like I added these. I just actually glued these on, did I? I think I just used Fabri-Tac to, oh, I bundled them, sewed them as a bundle, and then I Fabri-Tac'd the bundle on the front. But you can do that at a later date as well. Okay, so I think that is my cover. I might give that a little bit of an iron because that is just annoying me, that crease there. Okay, so I've ironed my cover. I've decided to put it this way up, and I have managed, just by tearing off even more of my paper, to create a little return here as well, which I really like. So now is the time to sew it all together. And first of all, we will just hold our signatures together with either, if you've got some nice big paper clips, they would do the job. I'm going to use these hair grips because they're nice and long. So the idea of this is to hold your signature together while we bind it, and really push the folds together so that they're nice and tight together and all in the same place. And then I'm going to put another one on this side, like that. So that's one signature. And I'm going to do the same here. And again here. Okay, now remember, if there is a right way up to your signatures, like I was saying, you want some text or something to be a particular way, and there is a top, then don't get confused and sew it in the wrong way round, because I've done that many a time and it's very irritating. So that's the bottom there, I can see from that pocket, and that's the top. In fact, to be honest, it's sometimes really helpful just to get a pencil and just write a little T for top. So people like me have very small brain, do not get confused. Right, so let's punch some holes. If you had lots of signatures, you would have to make some sort of little template to do this with holes in like this. But because we've only got 2 signatures and there's only 15 sheets of paper, I reckon we can just go all the way through both of them together. Okay, so we're going to make 3 holes. I'm using an awl. This is a proper bookbinder's awl. You could use a drawing pin or a skewer, you know, anything. The main thing is don't stick it in your finger, okay, when you're going through the papers. You have to keep your fingers well out of the way while you're poking through, okay? So first of all, I'm going to make a hole roughly, I'm not going to measure it, in the middle. So I'm going to go in the middle and I'm going to go all the way through all the papers. Like that. And in fact, I think we can even go through our cover too. I'm trying to find the middle there, which I think is roughly there. Am I happy with that? So giving that a really good wiggle. The idea is we're making a hole that is bigger than our needle, considerably bigger ideally, because that's going to just make it a lot easier to bind. Okay, so that's our middle hole done. Then I am going to do another hole above it. I suppose roughly halfway between the edge and the center fold, maybe giving it this bit a bit more space. It's just very rough. Okay, I'm holding my fabric book cover in place as best I can. I'm going to shove all the way through there, wiggle it around as much as I can, pull it back, and then finally one at the bottom here. Three of these, I'm going to separate these out, make sure I've got holes all the way through. Now I've marked them. That feels good. It's coming through the back. 3 holes in this signature. Like that, so that's good. So I'm hoping that is about right. No, doesn't feel like it is. Feels like it's too far up. Needs to be down a bit. Or like that, in fact. So this is fabric, not card, so obviously it's very forgiving when I'm making mistakes. If you're using card, you might have to be a little bit more intentional about it. Now we've only got 1 row of holes here and we've got 2 signatures, so we need to make another row, probably about 5 millimeters to one side of the existing row. So you've got 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and disappearing anyway, 1, 2. There we go. Okay, so we are all ready to sew in our signatures. So to sew, I have got, these are actually book binding needles, but so they're really chubby. But if you've got a really good darning needle, as long as it's got a nice sharp point and quite a big eye. So in terms of thread, you can use whatever you want as long as it's some nice strong thread. It does make it slightly easier if you use waxed thread, or you rub it along some beeswax. So that just makes it slightly more slippery to go through the paper holes. But if you just want to use embroidery thread, that's fine. It will be a little bit more tricky just pulling it through, but I have totally used embroidery thread before. I used it on my other one, as you can see, and then you can choose some nice colours as well. But for this one, I think I might use my blondie coloured one over here. I think that goes nicely with this neutral coloured cover. So how much thread do we need? This is a good question. I would say probably 30 centimetres, maybe slightly more. Always go for more rather than less. Going to thread the needle through like that. So we'll put one signature to the side. We'll start with our first signature and make sure we've got the top at the top. And first of all, we're going to go through the middle hole. This is called, by the way, this is called pamphlet stitch, book binding. If you want to Google it or put it into YouTube, you will find lots of wonderful video tutorials, I'm sure, that will explain it a lot better than me. But basically, first of all, we go through the middle hole, through the top middle hole here, pull it through, and we leave a nice tail. Now, you can chop your tails off later, but actually I sometimes like to add a little charm or something on there. So I'm going to leave quite a good tail on there like that. Right, then we are going to go through the top hole and through the top hole in the paper. This is slightly more tricky than coming up is harder than coming down, but not too bad. Okay, so we went down through the middle hole, up through the top hole. Then we go all the way down to the bottom and go down through the bottom hole, through our cover as well. And then finally we go back up through the middle hole again. And when you come back up through the middle hole, this is the slightly tricky bit. Ideally, you want to come up, you want this tail to be one side and you want the other tail to come out the other side of this central thread. First trick is to get it through at all. There we go, I'm through. Try not to go through, actually to go through your original thread. There we go. Okay, so there we go. We've got one thread coming out one side, one thread coming out the other side. And then to tighten it, you can pull this gently, and then everything hopefully goes nice and taut. And then you can tie a knot. One knot and another knot. Okay, I might just leave those threads there for now. That was probably a bit too long, but don't need to worry about that. That's our first signature done. Okay, so I'm going to cut another thread and we'll do exactly the same again for our second signature. Again, we're going to make sure that the top is at the top. Going down through our middle hole. Up through our top hole. Watch your fingers all the time. Down, all the way down to the bottom hole. And then up again through the middle. Pull it nice and tight. And tie it off. And there we go. So we can take off our paper clips or Kirby grips. And we have ourselves a lovely scrappy journal. All sewn together and ready for some fun Advent journaling. So the final thing you might want to think about is some kind of closure. So you probably have a number of options there. You could maybe sew on some sort of clasp or Velcro or whatever you wanted really. But the easiest thing to do, and I think the prettiest, is to use some ribbon. Tempted with this red. If you've got some nice Christmassy ribbon, that might be good. Or you can use a strip of fabric like this to make a kind of makeshift ribbon. And all I do is I thread it through the binding at the spine, the back. Just poke it through with something. Poke it through both of these threads, like so. Make sure it's long enough so that you can then tie it in a nice bow. It's probably a bit too long, but let's see. There we go. And you've got yourself a nice little journal. These threads here, you can cut them off if they're too long. And like I said, we could add some little beads to these. So on this one, you can see I have an angel wing, a little star, and 2 different little beads that I've added to the tails of the binding thread. So, you know, if you've got any broken jewellery hanging around, that could be a good use for that. So I hope you've enjoyed hanging out with me today and making a scrappy journal for your Advent journaling. And I would love to hear what you're up to for Advent. Let me know in the comments below if you've got any plans that you're excited about, and I would love to hear about those. So we'll catch up soon. Bye for now.